Three, two, one.
That's cool. I saw when I saw the podcast and the year was 1985. I thought that's so awesome. Like such a cool coincidence, you know. So getting to be a guest on this felt special, you know. It felt like coming home, which is pretty awesome. So trying to think back to growing up. So I'm from a little town outside of Ottawa called Russell, Ontario. So if you start leaving Ottawa and you start driving 30 minutes towards Montreal, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from Ottawa, you get to a little town called Russell, Ontario. So that's where I'm from. Born in 1985. And for me as a kid, it was all video games and hockey, and then getting into skateboarding. And then as I got a little bit older, that's where the music starts to take hold. So just the earliest kind of musical memories when it comes to enjoying bands and listening to CDs and that kind of stuff. I remember being, I think, 11 years old. So this is 1996. And I remember going to a hockey tournament, being on a bus, going a few hours to Quebec City. And I had, you know, a little CD Walkman. And the only two albums I owned were from 1996. So there was Moist, Creature, which is up here somewhere, up here.
Yeah.
So Moist, Creature, and then Bush Razorblade Suitcase. So they were Bush X back then, because there's another Toronto band called Bush. And a cool story is they were Bush everywhere but Canada, and then a Toronto band called Bush kind of blocks them because they own the name. So only in Canada they were Bush X, and like nobody knows that but Canadians. And then eventually Bush, I ended up becoming friends with a member. It's his uncle was in the Canadian Bush. Wow. And what they said, instead of asking for a ton of money, they said, if you're willing to donate this amount of money to charity, we'll give up the name Bush. And they donated to charity, and then Bush X became Bush in Canada, which is a cool story. So those are the first two albums that I remember myself owning and listening, and I would just switch between those two albums, which is pretty cool.
That's amazing. I do kind of remember a little clip on Much Music when they must have had like a press conference in Toronto or something, and they had the X on the sign, and it was like Velcro, and they like ripped it off, like, we're Bush now.
We're Bush now. That's it.
Right?
That's awesome. So symbolic.
Yeah.
Just pulling that down.
Yeah. Dude.
So those are the two earliest albums that I can remember being my own. And I remember being on a road trip. Now I think when I'm 14, we did a road trip. We ended up from Ottawa all the way to BC for a family reunion. And I think we flew somewhere and then ended up driving a bunch of it. And we stopped in at an HMV, and I remember getting Blink-182, Enema of the State, and I Mother Earth, Blue, Green, Orange. So they came out that year when I was 14. So then I just had those two albums that I was listening to through that road trip. And then the biggest album for me is once I turned 16. So in 2001, you have right here, Staind, Break the Cycle. So that comes out, and that's the first album that I really felt like was my own, that I just, the earlier Moist and Bush, I have a sister that's a couple of years older. So she was into the Nirvana and Bush and those. So it felt like I was kind of borrowing from her. And then Staind is the first band and that album that really spoke to me. Like, this is my music. I purchase it. I listen to it every day. So I have a special place in my heart for Staind, even to this day. So those are the early music memories as far as listening to music. And then myself as a guitarist, picking up the guitar at 8 years old and practicing and saving up, for a year to have enough to buy a microphone and try to start singing. And you find out very quickly that you play guitar, that's one thing, and then you just try to sing and it's one thing, but then once you buy a mic and you try to do both at the same time, you realize that's a brand new skill that I don't have, so I save up all my money, I buy a microphone, and then I'm so sad that I can't even do both at the same time. So these are all just random memories that are jumping out now as we talk about this stuff. We never think back to maybe that's what you guys do on your podcast,
Yeah.
which is awesome. But I don't think too much about my childhood, so I don't know. I might start crying during this episode. I don't know.
You might
Hey.
find something deep down.
Hey, feel
That's okay.
feel free. Feel free.
Yeah, no
we love
judging
it.
here.
No, and it's good to bring up those memories sometimes because I also have an older sibling who I felt like like you said, stole or kind of borrowed that music from. So like with Staying With You, I think I kind of felt like that with Silverchair, like especially like around Freak Show, like, and then Neon Ballroom, of course. Like I felt like those albums were like really like for me and like my peers and my generation. So that's awesome. So that kind of sparked the memory for me too.
Yeah. It's
So
funny 'cause-
Frog Stomp was 94.
Yeah.
Is what I remember. And what's cool is all these bands actually owe a debt of gratitude to Nirvana, because when Nirvana blows up in 91 with Nevermind and they're the biggest band in the world, every record label then goes out and tries to sign the next Nirvana. So in the search to sign the next Nirvana, you got your Bushes and your Silverchairs, and those bands were directly like, we need another Nirvana band. And you think like if Nirvana doesn't come out, is there a Bush that's popular? Is there a Silverchair? So a lot of random things that come into play.
What's your take on that? Like a lot of people, like what would happen if Nirvana stayed the course kind of thing. There's also the other rumors, there would have been only one more album, blah, 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 blah. But, what do you think would have, because I think it would have been really different. I'm curious what your opinion on that is. Like if Kurt, didn't pass away, what do you think would have changed? What's your opinion on that?
I mean, it's almost impossible for any band to continue with that amount of success over a long period of time. Like bands just come and go, no matter how popular they were, mostly. And, they had Nevermind, and, one of the biggest albums of all time. I think it's sold 30 million albums at this point. And they hated just how polished it was. Like it basically is a pop album. If you kind of turn the guitars down a bit, it's got like Beatle melodies and harmonies, and it's just like a very heavy, polished pop album. And Kurt Cobain hated it, and that's why after that, In Utero is just so raw, right? They go with Steve Albini, and they want to make it sounds like a garage band album. It's just so raw and feedback, and this is out of tune and that, and it sold well, but it sells a quarter of what Nevermind sold. So you figure if they're not going to go for that absolute polished mainstream album, the popularity is probably going to keep dipping as you go. So they probably would have had more albums, more great albums, but after them, grunge kind of dies out, but it's like, well, did it die out with Nirvana because they died out? So who knows?
Yeah,
maybe grunge would have kept going for way longer if they were still there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it led to a lot of one-hit wonders, and a lot of it opened up a huge gap. Like I know, like Rick Beato talks about it a lot as well. He talks about the gap that they left, kind of thing, and then somebody had to fill it. So it was all these kind of Bush, Silverchair, Puddle of Mud. I mean, even like STP to a certain degree kind of fell into grunge. It's not really. It's almost like, I don't know. They're kind of an odd cross between goth rock and R&B, but it's kind of like, you know what I mean? But they kind of fell into these categories as well. So I think it led to just a weird dynamic in the 90s, because there's a ton of music that suddenly just popped up out of nowhere, and not just pop music, and like it just kind of left this gap. I found like there's Goo Goo Dolls, Hootie and the Blowfish, all these type of, I don't think would have got the same airplay if it wasn't such a big gap left.
What's funny is the Goo Goo Dolls were actually like metal. I don't know if you heard like the earliest Goo Goo Dolls
They were
stuff.
like a glam metal band or something like that, weren't they?
When they first started, they were legit like metal. Same thing with Sugar Ray. Sugar Ray was like a metal band, and then out of nowhere, Goo Goo Dolls emerge, and Sugar Ray emerges as like two of the biggest, almost straight pop rock bands. But if you dig deep to the early stuff, both those bands were like shockingly heavy.
Yeah, like that song RPM from the first or second record or whatever. Like that's a pretty heavy tune. They got a couple of pretty beefy songs in the first couple, but they're very much skate rock or whatever, like skate punk or whatever in a way.
Mean
like
Machine.
SoCal or whatever. Mean Machine, yeah.
Mean Machine was another good one. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah, it's an interesting scene.
But that goes to show, like people sometimes have to evolve to
Yeah.
hit the big time.
Yeah, it's some of these bands, they get signed and then they think, okay, well, here's the big opportunity. So they'll make a little tweak to the sound to kind of take advantage of the opportunity.
So have you ever been in some bands that played some pretty big shows, like, or have you just kind of been like a home kind of guitarist?
Yeah, so I played in a band called Distant Society, and we released, I believe, 4 albums.
Oh, wow.
So this was when I was probably 16 to about 24 years old, something like that. And we had a little bit of radio play. We did well locally around Ottawa. And the biggest show that we played was opening for My Darkest Days. So it's the singer
crazy.
now from 3 Days Grace.
Wow.
So he was in a band called My Darkest Days that had a few gold-selling albums. And just as they were blowing up, he ends up going to 3 Days Grace. So I think My Darkest Days could have been a lot bigger than, they could have had more longevity and been bigger than they were, even though they had a lot of success. But the biggest show we played with them was for a few thousand people here. There's a festival called the Exhibition in Ottawa, and we got to open up for them, which was pretty cool. So I did the band thing from when I was 12 until I was about 25, 27, something like that. So just that's all I cared about, just playing music, promoting, writing, and eventually, even if you have success, man, it's hard to make a living as a musician. So, I was tired of working every waking hour and barely making enough to pay rent and put food on the table. So from there, I shifted more on the business end of the music industry. So I was at Warner Music and Publishing for a little bit. From there, I went to Metalworks, which is one of the #1 recording studios in Canada. So done albums for Rush and David Bowie and Drake and Tina Turner, Eminem, like amazing stuff. So I was there
cool
for
stuff.
7 years and really got into the business side instead of me myself performing.
Nice. So you studied audio engineering as well?
Yeah, so when I was 18, I went to London, Ontario and studied audio engineering. And it was more for me as a musician to be able to record myself. So I was able to record a bunch of albums because I had the equipment and the know-how of how to use it. And then years later, I went back to school for entertainment business management, which is all the business side. So working for a record label or managing a band or booking tours, the legal stuff. And all of that has actually come into play with the podcast. All the business side of booking the different artists and promoting and marketing and all that. And then the audio engineering, for any video editing, any audio editing, what mics to use, all that stuff. So it's all come into play and it's pretty cool. They say figure out what you love and do that, and then you're just having fun. And in my case, it's like just being a big music nerd and being able to just nerd out over music with popular musicians and find a way to not just be the annoying guy with like music nerd trivia that you're just annoying. It's like you find a way that's actually cool and it's a way to build something.
Yeah, and that's great. It's great too that like you have the passion for it as well. But I'm surprised to hear that there's no background in like any broadcasting and stuff like that, because you do come off totally natural. Like you're really, really well spoken and on the microphone and with the camera work and stuff like that. So it's cool that you have all the audio engineering side as well, but you're also good in front of the camera.
Oh, thank you. Maybe it's as a musician doing interviews, being on the other side and knowing like, oh, that was a bad interview. Why was that a bad interview? Like, what could the interviewer have done to make it a better interview? And maybe I learned from being on the other side of it. It helps me to make my guests feel more comfortable and what questions to ask. And I think the main thing is just I'm a big music fan. So my guests know that I'm not there to stump them. I'm not there for clickbait or for gossip. I'm there to honor them, to honor their life, their career, their discography. I'm there to share their story. I'm there to spread the word if they have a tour coming up or a new album or they're releasing a music video. So right off the bat, they know that I'm there for them and they have nothing to worry about. We're in the trust tree. It's going to be a good interview. It's going to be awesome. And I think they can feel that love and admiration and support, which is the main thing.
Yeah, like that's kind of where we want it to be as well. Like we're not in it for to get
celebrity news,
clips and the sound bites, but we just want to. We're trying to celebrate the people who we appreciate, right?
Yeah, and I'd like to hear people, talk, not necessarily brag or, just talk about themselves, and just tell a few stories. And like, that's what I like listening to podcasts or, even just interviews, whatever you want to put it. That's the reason I like it, because I want to know a bit more about the people who make the music or whatever they do, the engineers, the producers, whoever these people are that I may look up to. And even if I don't look up to, they've always got something to offer. Right, so it's interesting just to speak with people and hear their side of the story, kind of thing. It's cool, and it shows through your passion a lot of the time, I find, because of your knowledge and what you hit them with, kind of thing. And I think it not necessarily stumps them, but I think it surprises them that you're paying such close attention, kind of thing.
Yeah, a lot of times interviews are 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and it's like, tell us about the new single, like tell us about recording the album. And with us, with 2 hours, it's like we have lots of time to really go through everything, their life, just everything about them, and you get these stories, and they think all the way back to the beginning, and it's awesome. And I think the main thing is I'm just a huge fan. Like, all the guests that I've had are bands or artists that I listen to. Either I grew up listening to them or I listen to them now. And I just think back to being 16 with Stain Break the Cycle, and then here I'm interviewing a member. Or I think back to Moist when I'm 11, and I've interviewed 2 or 3 of their members. I can't remember. I've interviewed 2 of their members twice. I don't remember. But anyways, I've interviewed a bunch of Moist members for like 5 hours, and it's just, I'm here as a 39-year-old, but a part of me is still like the 11-year-old that I'm thinking back to listening to that album and just being a fan and coming full circle to this moment. So it's pretty surreal for me, and I have to try to stay professional, but I do kind of geek out and fangirl on them sometimes, but I think they can appreciate it. So
yeah, I think so. And so like, speaking to that, so what does it feel like now, getting a little older, and of course, like, we're about the same age as I guess we some of these people were when they put some of this music out, or what's it like now as a fully grown adult in the world, speaking with some of these people who are fan. Yeah, exactly. Speaking to some of these people, you know what I mean, in person, kind of thing.
Everyone's been surprisingly nice. You figure after 109 interviews or whatever I've done, you figure you'd get somebody that's just not nice, but maybe it's because they're mostly Canadian, and Canadians are just you hear that they're naturally pretty nice people, but everyone's been nice and appreciative, and it's been great. I guess I'm surprised. Like, every interview, I'm super prepared, I'm ready for it, but I always get nervous. 2 hours is a long time where you can make a mistake, you can say something stupid, you can you can falter. So I always get nervous, and then the interviews always go well. And I'm just so impressed with I guess they've done so many interviews that maybe they're professionals as well. So maybe they're holding up the interview. I'm not sure.
Is there anybody that surprised you?
In what way?
Just in terms of maybe some of the facts that they drop on you, something like that.
Yeah, so I did a couple interviews with Rich Bedeau, who was the drummer for Finger Eleven on 4 of their most iconic albums. He was one of the founding members of Saint Asonia with Adam Gonche of 3 Days Grace and members of Seether and Stained and whatever. So interviews with Rich, he was so open and transparent about like drug use and recovery and all that stuff. So it was a 3.5 hour interview. And we spent about an hour just talking about, you know, the dangers and pitfalls of fame and rock stardom. And the music industry is one where we tend to worship and praise those with the worst behavior and the drug problems, you know, like you become iconic like Ozzy Osbourne and Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses. And man, it's so tough. Can you imagine being like 22 years old and you're rich and you're famous and you're always on the road where there's the temptation of women and drugs, and it all comes freely. And yeah, so him just being open and honest about it and his journey to sobriety and how well he's doing now, you think maybe people would want to hide that, or maybe they're ashamed of it. But in his case, he's in such a good place now that it's more about bringing that awareness and letting other people know that they're not alone when it comes to drug use or maybe depression or mental health issues. So people can look at him and be like, wow, if this successful musician has gone through these pitfalls, then it's normal that other people do as well. And hey, if he can rise from the ashes and be in such a great place now, maybe I can do that as well. And he offers, you know, tips on maybe how to get out of a funk and those kind of things. So that first interview with him was not shocking, but the amount of honesty and vulnerability was kind of shocking.
Yeah. You've had a few like self-help people on your podcast early on. Is that correct?
Yeah. So when I started the podcast, it was right at the start of the pandemic, and I was just interviewing people I knew that I thought were awesome. So, you know, a hockey player that was drafted to the NHL, a professional dancer, a best-selling author, a motivational speaker. So people I knew them personally, and I knew they were awesome, and I knew they had wisdom to share and stories to share. Those are the people I had on. And, you know, the interviews were 45 minutes or maybe an hour. It's funny how as you do the podcast, it kind of becomes its own thing. Like you maybe didn't plan on it being that way, but it just takes on a life of its own. So the podcast is known for 2-hour deep dive interviews. That's like its thing. And it didn't start like that. It just happens that, you know, 2 years in, I do my biggest interview at the time, which was a 2-hour deep dive interview. And then a multi-platinum band saw that interview, reached out to me and says, hey, we're in the middle of the pandemic. Everything's locked down. We have nothing going on. We saw that interview. We'd love to do a 2-hour deep dive interview. So suddenly, after 2 years of interviews that nobody watched, my two biggest interviews are 2-hour deep dive interviews. And every interview since then for the last 2.5 years have been 2-hour deep dive interviews. So that like created itself. Mm-hmm. And because those two multi-platinum artists, those episodes were so popular, it just kept being musicians. So I basically the last 2.5 years have almost only been musicians. I had a really popular photographer in there. I had someone that does some good events or some rabbit rescues or something I'm passionate about, but it's mostly musicians just based on demand. And that's my background is the music industry. So it's like, those are kind of my contacts. Those are my people I hang out with. So I just find it funny that if you do something long enough, it kind of starts shaping itself into something, you know, it's almost like it's meant to do this when you started here and had no idea where it was going.
Well, yeah, that's the best part about being a creative, I think. You know, you don't know where it's going to end up. You kind of just fall back to where I think you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I think so too. I agree with that. It has its own path kind of thing. You're just not to sound cliche, but you're just the conduit kind of a thing. Eventually, like it's interesting.
It's great that you you fell into doing what was not only the most popular thing that you were putting out anyway, were the 2-hour deep dives, but really it's kind of probably what you're most passionate about is your music and stuff that, you know, that you love, right? So
Yeah, I love, we can talk about movies and video games and all that stuff and books. And, I'm reading all the time. Like, I'm such a big book nerd, and I would love to interview authors as well. I read their book and I love it. And I'd love to, having just read their book, I'd love to break down the book with them and when they knew that they wanted to be an author and the path to get there. And so I have all these other passions, but it's now it's at the point where it's like, oh, I think I can get a member of Shinedown on the podcast. Like, oh, I think I can get a member of Fuel on the podcast. Oh, I can get another member of Stain. And it's like, I'm so excited about those guests that I'm pretty sure I can get on any time, that it feels like, why would I have to go and try to find the author and see if they'll come on? And like, yeah, it's like the podcast kind of has its own trajectory now, but I would love to branch out and talk to, the makers of, Naughty Dog, the makers of The Last of Us, and, do movie producers or actors. Like, I would just love to talk to incredible people in any industry. And I think that's why I started with, it's the Mastery podcast. So it's people that have achieved a level of mastery in their chosen field. But just the last 2.5 years, it's just all, there's all these music options that I've been doing.
Well, yeah, and it's not in its final form yet, right? Maybe not. Maybe you will be. Yeah, you will be doing the deep dives with these, big time famous directors and producers and movies and TV and stuff like that. So that's the thing. Sometimes you have to put it out there. You just put it out there into the world. So now I'm sure it's gonna find its way back.
Yeah, well, for sure. And that's kind of like what happened with us in the same kind of way. Like, they started as one thing, kind of turned into something else, and now it's a whole other, like, getting other people involved, having guests on, doing interviews, just speaking with people, even doing some live events around our town kind of thing, that kind of stuff. Like, really, yeah, it just kind of does what it does, and it's fun to follow along, and it's really cool that you're in that industry, so you can, you have those contacts, so you can get some interesting people on that are masters in their field, right?
In what way have you found that your podcast has been morphing and changing? So it started as you guys wanting to nerd out on 90s culture?
Well, originally it started, I was going to do, I don't know, like 12 to 15 episodes speaking to my friends. So me and Ryan have grown up together. Like, we're from Newfoundland. We've known each other since we were little kids. There's a bunch of us in this area that are all from the same town, knew each other for years. So my idea was essentially to document 90s childhood in Newfoundland growing up, essentially, with my friends. Just funny stories over a beer kind of thing, or whatever, hour or 45 minutes each kind of thing. And I found it first, of course, I found it hard to find people that were interested in, getting, and it was no video, it was just on mic kind of thing. So even just doing that was a bit difficult in the beginning. So then I was like, okay, so what do I do? So I was like, okay, I got a couple of friends that I know will at least come on and talk. So I'll try it and see what happens. So I made one myself, just kind of explaining what the podcast is going to be, talking to myself in a tiny room kind of thing. And then I got my buddy Alex on, and that was kind of what that episode was just kind of us talking about growing up and stuff like that. He's a little bit younger than me, but his older brother is one of my best friends, so we kind of got a weird relationship in that way. And it's interesting hearing his point of view, because he is a little younger, right? So he's like a third party to our nonsense. And then my next interview was Ryan, so we did one. And then the week after, we're like, well, why don't we just do one together? So then, of course, it was the three of us for a little while. And then Alex got a little bit too busy, so he left. And then we kind of were like, well, let's just keep going. And it would just turn into us going through 90s stuff, like talking about everything, like, from Much Music to, cutting down trees in the woods to whatever you can think of. Like, it was everything all over the place. And then it slowly, we just one day were like, well, we should try a guest. And we're like, well, who could we have? And then we kind of decided, okay, we'll make a little list and we'll reach out to 10 people. And we reached out to 10 people, and like 6 of them wrote us back within like 4 days. So we're like, okay, I guess we're doing this now.
You guys conquered the whole Much Music the whole Much Music Avenue, right? With Rick Campanelli and Bill Welichka.
Yeah.
Man, you guys got
Yeah.
the elite of Much
Yeah.
Music and
Yeah, it'd be cool to get like everybody.
Yeah,
but I mean,
it would
that's
be.
a
Yeah.
that's a
Sookie and Lee and all the other ones.
Master P and or Master T and
Yeah. Erica M.
Erica would be good. Yeah, there's lots of good, really good ones.
Yeah. No, we definitely two of the Mount Rushmore of Much
Yeah,
Music,
oh yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, two of our
But,
at least
yeah.
our favorites. Anyway.
You know, and it, you know, we didn't even think we'd ever have, you know. So I'm like, hey, let's move the podcast into my spare room in my house. Let's try video, and then
Yeah, because we were streaming, like we tried doing them live for a little bit, like over Twitch. So we would just do like a live podcast and do that, and it was, I mean, it's fun,
Yeah.
but it has a different element to it, kind of thing. Like you're kind of now communicating with two audiences versus one, because you're still going to record it for later. So it's kind of odd in that
Weird,
capacity. So that we kind of moved away from doing that. Like we've tried almost everything so far.
You guys have like the ultimate man cave there. Like your room reminds me of being at my friends' houses growing up and playing video games. You know, it just feels like a safe space for a bunch of dudes.
yeah,
Pretty much, yeah.
yeah. This is the dude man cave here. Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah, this is where we are now.
Yeah, now we're
I mean,
doing this
and
kind of thing.
like you said, we interview everyone who've directed movies, produced, who've done music videos,
Yeah.
who are authors. We've interviewed
Photographers, comedians.
You know,
Nice.
so you know a little bit about, you know, and you mentioned you like to read a lot. You're also an author, so tell us a little bit about that whole process, and where did that start, and how's that been?
Yeah, so I've been in the process of writing a few books, and probably about 8 years ago, I wrote a chapter in a book that had multiple chapters, multiple authors within the book. And at the start, it's funny, at the start of the pandemic, I started working on a book about networking. So before the pandemic, when I lived in Toronto, I would run all these big events. So open mic nights and vocal competitions and karaoke and personal growth and networking. So I ran all these events, and I felt like one of my greatest skills was connecting people. So, you know, I hear from this person that, oh, this is their biggest challenge right now, and it's taking up so much time and energy. And it's like, oh, well, I know this person that could fix that, you know, in 2 minutes. That's their specialty, and connecting them. And it's like not about making any money from anyone, but just, you know, it's just having such a great network of incredible people. It's almost like you're just like the operator that's like placing this person here and this here and just helping people as a whole. So at the start of before the pandemic, I started writing a book on networking called No Strangers. So just how to build community one person at a time, one relationship at a time. And then the pandemic hits, where it's like, no, like you cannot meet people, you cannot see people in person, lock yourself down. Like if you go out, you're an idiot, you're the problem. Yeah. And it felt like the whole world was the opposite of like the book I was trying to write, and it just didn't feel congruent anymore. And like and even to today, so I had this great idea for a book, and I was writing it, and it just felt like the last 4 years, it's like the opposite of the book that should get released. So I've pivoted, and I've been working on a kid's book called A Rabbit Named Violet. Oh, so nice. I myself have a rabbit named Violet, and for the last year I've been saving rabbits from being euthanized. So I take in rabbits that had 48 hours left before they were going to get euthanized if no one came in and saved them. And I bring them in, and I help them find their forever homes. So people that have been looking for a great rabbit as a pet. So I've had 12 rabbits in the last year, and just by, you know, saving these rabbits, getting to know these rabbits, the rabbit I have. So it's all this experience with rabbits, and, you know, I have an idea for a story, a kid story on rabbits, and then the money will go to help these rabbit rescues in different cities. So that's the book that I'm currently working on now. But I feel like one of my big callings and passions is to write, to be an author, and it's something that I struggle with to sit down and just write the book. You know, I get excited about this interview and that and doing this, and it's like I know that's what I'm supposed to do, and I just have to step into that. So I think as such a lover of music, the podcast takes care of that passion. And then as such a lover of books, like I'm reading, I usually read about 60 to 70 books a year. Like I'm just always reading. And I feel like that the love of that craft and the passion for that craft, it's my conduit, you know, my source for that is me myself to be an author, and I just have to step into that.
Wow, yeah, that you're very diverse, and also like you must be able to use your time very, very wisely then.
I feel like I was better with my time management. So back when I worked full time at Metalworks, you know, I'd start work at 9, so I would get up at 5 and do 4 hours worth of stuff on my passions outside of my full-time job. So I felt like by having 40 hours a week taken from me with a full-time job, I was so great at before and after work, my time and scheduling and this project and goals and to-do lists. And I've been on my own timeline for the last 7 years now. And I find because I have every waking hour available to me that it's almost like I have so much time that you end up wasting more of it than you should. Like, oh, like there's no rush really. I could do it, you know, 7 hours from now. I could do that instead of right now. So when I have less time and I have to do time management, I'm very good at it. But I think I could be a little better right now with it. Yeah.
How long into your booking and stuff and planning do you go into each episode that you have?
In preparation for an interview? Or?
Yeah. So do you say book, most of your interviews, say 1, 2, or 3 months in advance, and then kind of, and how long do you spend on each kind of individual, other than what you already know about them, to kind of, fill up 2 hours worth of material?
Yeah. So I try to have so I do 1 2-hour interview a week, and then I try to do 2 or 3 of the Music Minute episodes that are only a minute long, and it's either sharing breaking news in the music world or sharing memorable stories from music lore. So I total try to do 3 to 4 episodes a week, one being a 2-hour interview. So the 2-hour interviews, I try to have 2 or 3 guests booked at all times. So I know that the next 2 or 3 weeks, it's like this interview, this interview, this interview, and that allows me to stay ahead of it. So that's how long booking in advance is, just a few weeks. And as far as preparation, so I have 1 week to prepare for each 2-hour interview, and I spend several hours going through their entire discography. So most bands on average have about 5 albums, something like that. So they're all 45 minutes to an hour each. So, 5 hours to listen to their discography, and I listen to it 2 or 3 times. So that's how much music I listen to, so that I can talk about anything they talk about in their discography. And then as far as the, preparing the questions and all that, and the research, yeah, I probably do, I don't know, about 10 hours worth of research. Just I go through their website, I go through their social media, I go through Wikipedia. I'm in contact with them. I let them know, okay, look, in the week in advance, is it okay if I message you with specific questions I need clarity on if I can't find the answers or whatever? So I'm kind of bouncing questions off of them as we go during the week. So by the time we're doing the interview, I have 5 to 15 hours worth of music listening knowledge, and then I have probably 10 hours worth of actual studying their life, career, discography knowledge. So I'm ready. Like I usually have about 10 pages worth of questions, and you can maybe get through about 3 pages worth of questions in a 2-hour interview. So I'm ready for 6 hours if it goes 6 hours. And just being a fan of that musician and that band and their music, I could for sure keep talking for the 6 hours just because I'm loving just having the opportunity of sitting down with them as a fan.
Yeah, no, I think it shows, right?
Definitely, yeah, I think
definitely is a inspirational from the podcast side of things, like where, I think I can do a little bit better now with my with my preparation and stuff like that. I think yeah, definitely you're an inspiration, and your social media, like you definitely incorporate a lot of social media into your podcasts. So like that takes a lot of time out of your day as well, right? You're doing it all yourself?
Yeah. Oh, I spend more time promoting the podcast than preparing or doing the podcast.
Yeah, that's such a huge thing.
It's every waking hour. It's brutal. It's for sure the worst part is for me to do one post, just one. I do, I don't know, 7 posts a day for the podcast. One post usually takes me about an hour and a half between. If I want to post a 1-minute clip, it's like, okay, well, there's 20 minutes where they're talking about this one album. So it's like, okay, well, there's the 20-minute clip that'll go up on YouTube. And then I need the best 1 minute to make a 1-minute clip. So it's like editing that down to the 1-minute clip and then, having it in the right format where it's up and down for shorts and reels and stories. Yeah. And it's like you need to add another picture with it or another video with it. So like you're editing a second video and then you need captions and then you need to add music in the background. We're talking about a specific song, so I have that song playing in the background. They talk about their favorite artist, so it's like I have to edit a video of the artist they're talking about and then add a song of the artist they're talking about. And just editing from the 20 minutes to 1 minute, putting it together for each platform is slightly different, adding the captions, then even just posting it. Like I have to do some of the posting from my cell phone and some of the posting from my laptop because of how it shows up for each medium. And then I have to post on Threads and Twitter first because you can't add music to them. So it's like, okay, I know those are going to be without music because the platforms don't integrate music. So those two go out and they're nice and easy. And then, okay, now we need not the, YouTube, when you do a short, it's like you don't want to add music because it gets a copyright strike and it gets taken down and it can't be monetized. So it's like the first clip is I've added all the videos and I've added the captions, but no music yet. Okay, now that's up on YouTube. That's taken care of. Okay, now I can add music. Which ones allow me to have music? Okay, Instagram and Facebook. Okay, so you do the reels on each of those, not the reel, well, whatever. You do the posts on each of those. And then a post on Facebook and a reel is 2 different things. So it's like the post and then the reel. And then you get to doing the up and down stories. Essentially you put the stories, but you got to tag the musicians, you got to add the link to the full interview, and like it's such a nightmare, man. It's when I sit down to do my first of 7 posts today, I know I have about an hour and a half to go for this one little 1-minute clip to go out. So that it's brutal, but it seems to be working, all with the goal of sending traffic to the full 2-hour interview. It's such a brutal process, man. But yeah.
Yeah, that's something, and especially like
I think I just tired you guys out.
No, it's
I hear you.
I totally relate to it
I
because
can absolutely relate to everything that you just said. Like it's just the both of us doing it, but really, for me, it's just anything on Instagram is from my phone only. So I totally understand the frustration and sometimes the painstaking time just to make a freaking reel and post a reel about
just to promote something so someone will come look at your thing. It's not. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, and then you start looking at numbers like posting on, and I didn't even mention Snapchat and like all the other ones and TikTok, and you start looking like where is there actually traction happening.
Yeah.
And for me it's really Instagram and TikTok. That the reels, like the 1-minute videos, like I just did an Ozzy Osbourne one and I got 88,000 views, and it's like, That man, normally something gets 300 views and then something else gets 4,000 views, and then you get one that gets 88,000 views, and it's like, click here for the full, for everything, and you're hoping that's just driving traffic over to the actual podcast, and yeah, it's a pain doing the actual hour and a half posts, but I love the actual promotion of things, like trying to figure out, okay, I have this one clip, what should the title be, what's the best way to promote this, and seeing the results. And so I actually love marketing promotion. It's just how time consuming it is to do it.
The back end portion I find is frustrating. Like, it's, you're on a phone because you can only do so much. Like you're saying, you can only do a certain amount from your phone, you can do a certain amount from your computer kind of thing, like hands-on kind of thing. But even like Instagram limits a lot of what you can post from your desktop directly. So then you're fooling around. Of course, now you've made this real cool clip, on your desktop. Now you got to get it to your phone. Then you can finally, but yeah, it's just, they haven't made it handy, I don't find, in any way. Or maybe it's just me. And I mean, I know you do the majority of the social media stuff, but it's frustrating.
It's a necessary evil.
It is a necessary
yeah.
evil, yeah. I mean, it's like, when you're in a band, you got to do posters, you got to tell everybody, before the internet kind of thing, right? You have to tell everybody, and, back in the old day, you'd put it in your ICQ away message or your MSN away message or whatever, promoting your show, but it's the same thing.
You're definitely born in '85 if you just said ICQ.
Yeah, buddy.
that was before what was the other ICQ, and then what was the other one?
MSN became popular with us,
like
Messenger or whatever.
AIM, AIM,
Yeah.
or whatever it was.
Yeah,
people were doing
MS,
AIM.
Yeah, that one.
AIM was weird. I don't know. I never got involved in that.
Never did either.
ICQ was a big one though.
Definitely.
I remember ICQ. It's like everyone's in red when they're offline,
Yeah.
and then they would go green when they're online, and you'd be so excited. Someone goes green, you're like, I can talk to someone. This is amazing.
Yeah, you'd hear that
ICQ
little
was the best.
little knock at the door, I think, when someone came online, and then when they message you, like the definitely is. Yeah,
that was ICQ only got shut down like last year. I didn't realize it was still a functioning thing, but
People are
apparently
still using it.
yeah, but apparently it only got shut down like last year. It's pretty funny.
Damn.
Yeah, that's an old
an
that's a
old
deep
school.
cut for the 1985 people out there.
Way back, playback.
That's
yeah.
even well, for us when I used it, that was before MySpace.
Oh yeah, way before all that. There was no social media. Like that was the social media aspect, was leaving the away message. That was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Besides the talking portion, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah. When I was promoting your podcast and that I was coming on it, again, I was thinking, what song is best for it? And had you guys thought of Bowling for Soup's 1985? Have you guys thought of that as like the theme song for? That's like so perfect.
Maybe not the theme song, but definitely it definitely has a, we could take a little soundbite out of it,
take a bite,
and incorporate it into.
Be nice for a
Although,
story,
like, the
maybe a
nostalgia,
story, so you don't get dinged with copyright things.
Well, yeah, we don't want to create any enemies before we get a chance to at least interview these guys. Maybe that would be pretty cool.
I was so proud. Like when I was choosing the song, I was like, oh my god, Bowling for Soup 1985. I was like so happy with my song selection.
Perfect song.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So, how old were you when you saw Tragically Hip?
So, I think that was 90. I think that was 97 maybe, or 98, another roadside attraction. So yeah, I think I was like 12, 13, something in there when they played. So that's the first concert that I remember being at. And it was my parents that wanted to go. And when I look back now at the lineup, dude, it was Los Lobos, Ashley McIsaac,
Nice.
Sheryl Crow, The Tragically Hip, and there was one other opener that was awesome. And I look back, I'm like, that was such a solid 5-band bill. And I was again, I think I was like 12 or something. I just remember being there, being excited to have like pizza at the vendor more than anything. So I feel like it's kind of a wasted if I could go and see that, if I could see that concert now, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Ashley McIsaac's underrated. That's a cool, because I don't think he performs a whole bunch now. Interesting dude to see. I've seen him a bunch of times. He's pretty interesting.
So I've been messaging with him, and probably 2 years ago, we were in contact for him to be a guest on the podcast. Like he said yes, and then we just couldn't figure it out to
no
get
way.
him on. So I have him in my back pocket. I feel like someday I could reach out again and get him on. And yeah, my sister is a step dancer, so she used to step dance to his music. It's like fiddle music normally that you're step dancing to, and he was like alternative.
Yeah.
There was nothing like that in the fiddle world. He's kind of a pioneer. So I grew up listening to Ashley McIsaac through my sister. So she was impressed when I said I had been talking. I got his cell number. I've been talking to him and hoping to get him as a guest. And man, he was like, that album was multi-platinum.
Yeah, it's crazy. He was on like Tonight Show or whatever, whichever one of the Tonight shows.
Conan O'Brien.
And
we have a clip of him actually on our Instagram from his Conan O'Brien appearance. I'm not sure if you remember that at all, but
yeah, he had an incident, slight wardrobe malfunction, if you will.
Was he free falling or something?
He was free balling.
That reminds me. Do you remember The Darkness?
Darkness.
Darkness.
I love The Darkness.
Yeah, they were always wearing the tight onesies, and at one point he like went down low and it ripped, and he was just hanging out in his onesie. So it happened to The Darkness. It'll get the best of us.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. I used to play in a Darkness cover band at one point in time. I used to be. Don't mind my bald head now, but at one point I had long, luxurious hair, and I played in a Darkness cover band for a while.
Were you the singer that had to hit those high notes?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. You have to sing falsetto. If not, you just can't play it. That's pretty much how it works. But it's.
I saw The Darkness in Toronto at a small venue. There's probably like 700 people or something.
No way.
It was awesome. Yeah, he would walk. What was it? From the stage, he got on like a security guard's shoulder.
Yeah.
Right.
And so he's on there and he's playing guitar like through the crowd on his shoulder, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, there's live from the Hammersmith. He rides around on a giant unicorn, I believe it is. And
that sounds appropriate.
Yeah, it's sick. Yeah, I love those guys. They're one of my favorite 2000s bands for sure. So
yeah, Permission to Land. I remember that's when I was taking audio engineering and I was in London. So that was 2003, 2004. And that's when Permission to Land blew up. And that's like one of my favorite albums. It was so good.
So good. Front to back, 10 songs, all bangers, every one.
Yeah.
No skips
all
on that
filler,
one.
No filler.
Yeah, 100%. And same thing with One Way Ticket to Hell and Back. Like that's a full banger. After that, it gets a little.
The next album, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, super good.
Definitely a amazing 1-2 punch. Yeah, definitely back to back full album. I love The Darkness.
Oh yeah.
The singer is popular on TikTok. Have you seen what he does?
Yeah.
Like he critiques
Justin Hawkins rides again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's cool to see someone that is a super talented musician giving his take on other music, and it's normally on music you figure you wouldn't normally listen to. Like he'll listen to like a Justin Bieber song and be like, "Oh, it's actually like really good hook here and good harmonies." And someone will go into a crazy high note in a chorus and be like, "Oh shit, didn't see that coming." Like that's a cool note. And oh, he was doing Beautiful Things from Benson Boone.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And when you get to the please, like the high note, like it sounds kind of like a ballad, right? And it's slow, and then suddenly it picks up and it's like quite a bit heavier. He's like, "Oh shit, didn't see that coming." That was cool.
I like that he's not afraid to, speak honestly as well. He kind of, there was a new Green Day song, I believe he kind of spoke poorly of.
Food.
He definitely pushed that one in. Yeah, he didn't like that. So
I do love his YouTube, longer videos, right? So
yeah, I got right on that. As soon as I seen that he was posting, I was like, well, this is going to be good. And he doesn't explain it to you like a crazy music head, like he doesn't Rick Beato it for you kind of thing where you don't even understand what he's talking about necessarily. But he's just got just enough music theory to kind of explain it to you in layman's terms, which is good. And he's
I love how that's
funny.
a term. He doesn't Rick Beato you.
Yeah.
That's
I love
Sorry, Rick. We love Rick.
I love Rick Beato. Don't get me wrong, but
I got
gets a little crazy.
one comment once, probably a year ago, where someone put, "Is Joel the Rick Beato of Canada?" And I was like,
seen
that's
that comment.
literally the greatest compliment a music podcaster could ever get. That's my
100%,
favorite comment ever in the podcast history.
That's a compliment.
Yeah, no, he's great.
Yeah, I love Beato. He's right on. He's so funny. And he's so good. Like same thing, right? Like he's so knowledgeable, he can just explain it to you like you're two, which is interesting, right? He's funny.
Yeah, he's been around, been everywhere, and
oh, yeah.
and he knows all these albums, and It's great. Yeah.
He knows so much. It's like weird because he's so theory based and he's such a good, like, he knows so much about engineering and producing, and like he's so well rounded when it comes to music kind of thing in general. He's crazy. He's
Yeah, he gets the best guests as well.
Oh yeah,
Like he
so
gets
good.
the guests that you want to get. You know, your Danny Careys from Tool and your Maynards
Yeah.
from Tool and Stone Temple Pilots and
Ian Thornley.
Ian Thornley. Yeah.
Oh yeah, great Canadian.
Oh yeah.
Great Canadian.
I'd love to speak with him. He's a Mount Rushmore podcast for sure. Definitely.
Nice. I have him as a friend on Facebook, which is funny.
Oh,
Like,
snap.
you know, you have these guys on there and they look at who you're friends with, so they see more music industry people, and it's like they're like, oh, you know, this guy's probably okay. And you know, I've never talked to him, but I've had his drummer Sekou on
Yes,
as a guest. I've had his guitarist Chris Cadell on as a guest.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like I'm right there in his universe, you know, but I haven't had him on yet. So
Yeah. He's
Any others that you kind of are looking forward to possibly having on and speaking with someday?
yeah, I think the ultimate would be Eminem would be like the, you know, the best interview you could get, because you know, picture sitting down with Eminem for 2 hours,
Yeah.
and as a fan being able to go all the way through the history,
Yeah.
like not just asking about the new album, but like really diving in. And it's like, how much Eminem are you getting in there? How much of it is Marshall Mathers, like the actual human, not the superstar? And I feel like, you know, he's a genius. Like he's as much of a genius as anybody in music history when it comes to music and wordsmith and lyrics and all that stuff. And I feel like that would be just the most interesting interview that you could possibly do. And I'm a huge fan of his. So I think that would be like my dream one. You know, you'd be so intimidated because there's, you know, you have one of the greatest artists of all time, and yeah, it would be intimidating. But that, you know, having a great interview with Eminem and really diving into the stuff that doesn't get talked about, and I feel like it would be a very different kind of interview. So
I'd rather see those type of interviews where they do have a huge fan, like you said you were, of the artist, rather than just having a figurehead doing, you know,
a
Yes.
figurehead that goes, oh, who am I interviewing today?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
You know,
Eminem,
and tomorrow is someone different.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
give me my cue card and I'll just ask him, you know,
yeah. Give me
Whatever.
like 15 questions or whatever, and off we
you
go.
know, I do. It's those long form kind of format podcasts with a fan or someone who is at least knowledgeable. I think those are that's the content that I like to absorb, and I think that's the most beneficial for the artist to, you know, tell the story of who they are as a person.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm looking behind you. I see the Wayne's World poster. I just had a clip about Wayne's World because I had Robert Bailey on, who plays keyboards on Alice Cooper's album Hey Stupid, which has Feed My Frankenstein,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is in Wayne's World.
Yeah.
And I guess I think Alice Cooper is actually in Wayne's World as an actor.
He is,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
Or maybe as himself. I
Well,
can't
he has
remember.
himself in the backstage or whatever.
Okay, yeah.
They go to
And
his
there's-
concert,
I think-
yeah.
I think there's several Alice Cooper songs in that movie. But yeah, I just posted a clip where Robert Bailey, I asked, you know, can you remember the first time you heard your song on radio? Or he goes, well, the first was, you know, with this artist, but the first, like, oh shit, of hearing my song, he said, I was watching Wayne's World. He's like, I'm in the theater and Feed My Frankenstein comes on, and there's like very distinct keyboard that's him, and it's like very unique. And so he's like, I'm watching Wayne's World, and it's like I hear my keyboards coming out of Wayne's World, and you know, everyone in the theater is loving the movie. It's like they have no idea who I am or that's my keyboard. So he just had this kind of surreal moment of his music coming back to him in theaters in, you know, people's favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, I think we even mentioned that on our last podcast
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
because it was a Halloween pod episode, and then you played Frankenstein, and
Oh,
you're
yeah.
like, what does this song remind you of? And I'm like, or what was remember the first time you heard this song or something like that? I'm like, well, the first image that comes to my head is Wayne's World, right? So that's awesome that
That's
you had
funny.
that story as well.
Yeah, I actually I so I've seen your Rick Campanelli interview. I've seen your Bill Wilichka interview. So I went through those full interviews, and then I've been watching clips, and I saw that you guys were dressed up for like the Halloween episodes. And at the last minute before logging on, I'm like, oh shit, are they going to be dressed up? And I didn't even think about it. So
No, because it'll still be come out now next week.
This
kind
one
of
will
thing.
be out, yeah, a week from today.
Yeah, we post every like we record
the
1
week delay saved
The
me
delay-
from
the delay got
having
you.
to
The
wear a
Halloween, yeah,
costume.
you would have had to put your wig on and join us into a
Yeah.
rock and roll decision. Because I was Ace Frehley.
Yeah, the Hulkster.
So yeah, it was good. Are you a big Halloween person or no? Don't want to be.
I like the candy aspect of it, but I loved it as a kid. Actually, going trick or treating. As I've gotten older, what I try to do is do like a Halloween horror movie marathon, just to have something fun to look forward to at Halloween. So I try to watch 2 or 3 horror movies with a few friends, which I find pretty fun and entertaining. And I have 2 nieces. So since they've been born, Halloween I've been going over. They live about an hour away, so I go out there to do some trick-or-treating with them. So tomorrow I'll head over there during the day and get a little trick-or-treating in with them. So
That's awesome. That'll be fun. The young ones keep it fun.
yeah, are you guys into Halloween? You guys have someone has kids, right?
Yeah. Well, I have 2. So I have an 18-year-old and then a 6-year-old. So 2 very large differences in people. So like the
So
18-year-old,
one of them is still trick-or-treating.
Well, yeah, 2 of them technically. But so the older one, this will be like I don't think he went out last year. I think last year was like you say his last year or whatever. But the younger one, of course, and he's got little cousins and whatever around his age too, which that'll be tomorrow now. So we got like a group of I don't know six kids or whatever it is. We're all gonna go out and wander the streets and let them collect up their bag of candy and be all crazy and get all hopped up on
And
sugar.
the amount of candy they get these days is wild. I remember having like a little bin getting candy. Now it's like full pillowcases,
Yeah.
and like they fill that and they have another pillowcase. And you're like, this is a little excessive.
Yeah, I don't know. Around here, there's not as many kids going out, so I think everybody's just like, okay, take all my candy. Like, I got to get rid of this, or I'm going to eat it all myself.
I typically towards the end of the night give the big handfuls
Yeah.
because it is a problem in this household with me and little
Yeah.
chocolate
If
bars.
it's there, you're gonna eat it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, little chocolate bars are my demise around Halloween. I'll just eat them all until there's none left. That's so funny. So I'm going to bring it around back to the 90s a little bit. So I just wanted to ask you, so like we all grew up around the same time, obviously, and we seem to have very similar interests in music growing up or whatever. But so what are some of your, I don't want to say pivotal, but most memorable 90s albums?
Yeah, I think about it a lot. I think 1991 is like the greatest year ever for rock music, alternative music. So 91, you have Nirvana Nevermind, you have the Black Album from Metallica, you have Stone Temple Pilots Core, you have Guns N' Roses Use Your Illusion. I could be wrong about some of these, but I think these are all 91 albums. You have Pearl Jam 10, I believe. I think there's a Soundgarden album in there, maybe Bad Motorfinger.
Yeah, I think so.
Red Hot Chili
You
Peppers
have
in
Rage
there?
Against the Machine's debut album, which is, I think, maybe early 92. But yeah, 1991 is just, to me, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood, Sex, Sugar, Magic.
Yeah.
91 is just such an incredible year for music. Yeah, that it's like a shockingly good year. What else? 90s albums. God. Yeah, you just think back to you growing up. In the 90s, you're 6 years old, you're 10 years old, you're 12 years old, and you're taking in all this amazing music, and you get nostalgic of were the 90s the best ever, the 2000s or the 2010s, and you feel like the early bands you first got into were kind of the best bands.
Yeah, like there's a few behind you that I do remember being pivotal in my life. Like I mean,
Yeah? Like what?
I loved Finger 11, Grace, Blue Skies. Like that was one that I even still listen to regularly today.
Yeah, I do.
I thought so. I thought where is it? Oh, up here.
Or was that?
So yeah, I always thought Grayest of Blue Skies was their best album, and then I've interviewed 3 of their members and some of them multiple times, so I've gone through the discography so much. So I always thought Bluest of Gray Skies was their best because the 3 singles were undeniable, right? Drag You Down, First Time, and there's one more, Bones and Joints.
Yeah.
Those are 3 undeniable, amazing songs, and that came out, I think, in 2000.
Oh, was it? Okay.
So I was
probably.
so I was 15. So that's like the pivotal Finger 11 album that I fell in love with the band with. So I always thought that was their best. But listening through the discography, I actually think the next one, I think it's self-titled and it has 3 white lines on the front.
Oh,
It's the one that has
One
it's
Thing.
the one that has One Thing.
One Thing, yeah.
And Good Times.
Right.
Yeah, so I think it's actually the album after that is actually their best, like as a whole. So maybe the 3 singles from this album, maybe those are the 3 best singles. But as an album as a whole, go back and listen to the album after this with One Thing, and I think that's their most solid album.
That's good. Yeah.
That's a good recommend.
Definitely love that.
What other are there any other albums on the wall that a few I'm covering up? There's I'm
Big
Mother
Wreck,
Earth,
obviously.
Thorn
Big
Lady.
Wreck. I'm Mother Earth is a big one too. Like that was a big
Sea
album
Green
back
Fish.
in the day.
Yeah. Even Our Lady Peace. My brother had Clumsy, right? So
Yeah,
I
that's
would
true.
borrow that off him and throw it in my little CD player, and like I loved Our Lady Peace like growing up too. So
Yeah, Big Sugar. I got
So I
really into Big
remember-
Sugar later in life, kind of thing, like in my later teen years.
Big Sugar.
Yeah, I love Big Sugar.
My sister had like one of those stacks of CDs, and I remember pulling the Our Lady Peace album, Clumsy, and putting it in, and it starts with whatever the Subway song. I'm like blanking on names. The world's a subway.
Oh,
It's like one of the big singles.
Superman's dead or no?
No,
Yeah, Superman's dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is,
Superman's
yeah,
dead. So I think the album starts with that song. So I remember taking this album and putting it in, and that song comes on, and nothing sounds like that. There's the why like that thing's
Yeah.
strange, and then alone. Like he
Right.
does so many vocal things that I had never heard in my life. I remember just putting that in and kind of not knowing what I was listening to, but being drawn to it and knowing it was awesome, but
and even
having no grasp of what was going on.
like
Funny-
the music video for that even
Yeah.
was really kind of like, you know what I mean, like jarring when you watched it. It had a lot of quick cuts and a lot of shaky cam, and
Yeah.
it was.
Do you
interesting.
remember? So there's a boy that's featured in that whole video.
Yeah.
There's a young boy. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was in a band as well.
So he was the singer of Serial Joe.
Yeah.
Oh snap! I didn't know that.
Yeah, I knew.
So that's
I knew-
Ryan Denis.
No way! I didn't know that. That's crazy.
So that was long before, like that was him as a kid,
Yeah.
and then as a 14-year-old or whatever, they get big with Serial Joe. And I have a funny story. My last few months of high school, I did a co-op at a recording studio in Ottawa called Distortion Studios. It was Alanis Morissette's studio. She's from Ottawa, and there was a band that would come in to record called Channel One, and their drummer was the drummer from Serial Joe, like years later after Serial Joe. So that's my Serial Joe connection, was this band called Channel One that my band used to play with all the time. They were awesome.
Yeah, Mistake was such a fucking banger. I used to love listening.
Yeah.
Like that was a great song. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were just really young too
Yeah.
when that came out and stuff.
Yeah, I forgot that they
Man,
were super
they
young. I
played
completely forgot about that.
Woodstock after that album.
Yeah,
That's
They
insane.
were on an opening stage at Woodstock. So can you imagine being like 14 or 15 and playing Woodstock? Like,
Yeah, just a
No.
couple young kids from
Jeez.
they're from Ontario as well. So I think
Yeah.
aren't they? Yeah. So I mean, just the experience alone, just to be, I'd love to somehow get in contact with him to get him on the podcast
Yeah.
to talk about that. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I forgot that they were
until
so
right
young.
now I forgot that I actually saw them in concert. So I mentioned that the biggest show I ever played was at the Exhibition, the X in Ottawa, with My Darkest Days. Every year they put on a week-long series of free concerts every night, and it's like I saw Avril Lavigne there. I saw Simple Plan there. I saw like just incredible artists for free every year. And Serial Joe was one of the headliners one of the years when I was young. And I remember them playing and they're like, all right, they talk like they were a metal band, like they were kids and they talk like they were the heaviest band in the world. And they're like, I remember they did a Nirvana cover from In Utero. The Hey Wade, I Got a New Mistake. It's Heart-Shaped Box. I can't remember the name of the song.
Yes.
But I remember a young Serial Joe playing at the X. So.
That's cool. That's the difference of growing up in Ontario versus growing up in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
Didn't get to see much.
Yeah.
Not much for concerts in Newfoundland growing up where we were. Just
No.
one festival, yearly
big one.
festival that we used to
Yeah.
get to.
It used to be pretty big
from
when we
the
were kids.
East Coast. Are you guys familiar with Winter Sleep? Then?
I was going to bring up Mr. Lowell Campbell.
Yeah.
So I also did audio engineering, but I did it through Center for Arts Technology out of Halifax, which is affiliated with Sonic Records, which is Winter Sleep, Matt Mays, used to be Great Big Sea, not Great Big Sea, still
Love
under the
Matt
banner,
Mays.
but not the same. Yeah, Matt Mays, super cool bunch of dudes. The original El Torpedoes, a bunch of cool dudes. Like, they're all cool like that.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my experience. So yeah, so like I've actually been in the studio with Winter Sleep when they were when they put out what was the one that Weighty Ghosts and all that stuff was on.
Yeah.
So right around that time was when they finished that just as I was starting, but they were still doing tracking for stuff. And I mean, Lowell's always doing something or whatever. So yeah, so I've met Lowell a bunch of times and work with him kind of in the studio and stuff like that. Yeah. So Winter Sleep, I've seen Winter Sleep a lot. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, they're one of my all-time favorite bands.
Nice,
Like,
yeah.
love. That's the second album.
Yeah, right here. I was gonna say I see it right here. Yeah.
Yeah, and love Winter Sleep. So I had their singer on way back at the start of the podcast, and I had Lowell on, and he's been drumming for Billy Talent. Are you aware of this?
Yeah, man. Like I knew because he drummed for Matt Mays on his, the newest one, where he's did it as a electric and then as an acoustic. I can't remember what it's called now. It's the one with the blue cover and the white cover. Newest one anyway. But yeah, he was on that as well and did a bunch of production for it. Like he produced that, and I think he did some engineering with it. Lowell's a really interesting guy, eh?
Yeah, he's very soft spoken. He's awesome. And back when I was taking audio engineering when I was 18 in London, I kept seeing three bands that always played together. So it was always the Trues, Sam Roberts, and Matt Mays. Yeah. In that 1 year in London, I saw these guys every 3 months or something, and I loved Matt Mays. His first two albums, there's the Orange album and then the Blue album. Those two albums are so good. And I remember I met the members, and they had a member, I guess, in El Torpedo. It was Brad Conrad was a member. And so he has the word rad in his first and last name, Brad Conrad. His nickname was Too Rad.
Too Rad, yeah.
I just remember that. So we'd be everyone's cheering
man.
for Matt Mays on stage, and they're just me, my friends, and I Too Rad's the man, just yelling out support for Too Rad.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, I love it. That's funny. Yeah, because I was in the studio with Darren when they were finishing Terminal Romance, because it was kind of like Winter Sleep were doing that. They were finishing Terminal Romance, which is the third one, the pink one with the heart motor on the front. Really killer album too, and they went all over the place recording it and stuff. And so I got a little early sneak peek on that album too, which is cool. Really cool album. Made me a really big fan. I wasn't a crazy big fan of Matt Mays until I kind of seen it happening versus listening to it happen, and then now it's one of my all-time favorite bands or whatever.
Actually, that makes me want to go back and listen to the first two albums again.
Really good.
They had
very good.
Cocaine Cowgirl, City of Lakes.
On the Hood.
Those
On
first
the
two
Hood.
albums are so good.
On the Hood.
If you're not familiar. And then live, they're awesome. They're just
So good, yeah.
rock and roll, just
Yeah.
straightforward,
Yeah.
bringing the thunder.
Yeah, they're super cool. I got to see them. I think maybe it was maybe 2008, 2007, and they're great guys too. And Matt Mays is great. He stopped and chat with us after the show. We got a couple of awkward pictures, I remember.
Matt's can be a little awkward sometimes anyway, but he's a really sweet guy. They're all really nice dudes. Because there's the old El Torpedo, and then there's a new El Torpedo, which isn't El Torpedo anymore, but it's just the backing band and stuff. And Yeah, I got to know those guys pretty good and kind of caught up in that Halifax scene there for a bit, like, so it was interesting. Got to kind of help out with some shows with them, and he opened up for Thornley a couple times, and that was cool. Just got real up and close and personal with Ian, because he's like right in front of you at the Seahorse there, the old Seahorse that's there and stuff. Really, yeah, reminds me of the good old days.
you want to hear a weird connection between Matt Mays and Thornley and a few different things?
Hell
Sure.
yeah.
So I interviewed Ken Tizard, who was in The Watchmen,
Yeah.
and then Thornley after. And yeah, there's this connection where he's in The Watchmen, and The Watchmen play with Big Rec. So Ian Thornley and Ken become friends. And then they would all hang out, and Ian Thornley ends up married to his sister, Ken Tizard, his sister. Okay, so that's
wow.
Ian Thornley's wife. So there's this connection, and then they start the band Thornley, like the two guys. And I just recently saw, Ian Thornley, I believe, is married to someone else now. Like, this is all old news. And I just saw, I was looking into Ken Tizard, like doing my research, and his sister is, I think, like a famous chef, or she has a cooking show. She's like a media personality. Like, she's well known. So that was Ian Thornley's wife before. I think she's now married to or dating Matt Mays.
Oh,
So-
that makes sense. Yes, she's a CTV cooking chef lady.
Me as a huge Matt Mays fan, just as I'm doing my research, I see like his sister, and then I see like posts with her and Matt Mays. I'm like, my brain can't handle like all these things that I know, but are connected in a way I didn't know were connected. So
That's funny.
That's
I didn't realize
there's
that was
your
her.
Thornley, Watchmen, Big Rack, Matt Mays connection all together
Nice.
there.
that is one Canadian connection right there.
That is, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, that's
I like it. That's all parts of
Random
Canada
Canadian
too.
Yeah, wrapped up in one big Hawkins Cheesy's bow.
There you go. Hawkins cheesy. Oh my.
So, Joel, sorry, I didn't mean to call you Joel.
You did it.
It's all
I did.
good. Joel. I've been called worse for sure.
I just try to talk fast. So, where do you see your podcast? Through the end of this year and then into 2025.
Yeah, just looking to stay consistent. That's the hardest thing, is just to stay consistent. And so just want to continue doing the 2-hour interviews once a week, adding in another 2 or 3 shorter episodes, staying consistent with that, trying to keep getting bigger and bigger guests. I think I just need to update kind of my dream list and start going for those. The last year is basically, I just keep, through every interview, I keep getting connected to more amazing musicians, and guests just keep coming in, and it's like, oh, I've been talking to this guy, like, oh, hey, do you want to be a guest? And then I promote, and a big musician comments on that post, so then it's like, oh, they're in my orbit, and oh, like, hey, do you want to be a guest? And I'm just kind of like randomly asking guests that I'm excited to talk to and that are well known and that are awesome, but it's just kind of what's being presented to me. So maybe it would be a good idea, you're asking me about my Mount Rushmore and my dream guests and all that. Maybe it would be a good idea to just go, here are the 10 like craziest, awesome, most awesome guests I could get, and just go for them. Right? Put it out into the ether.
right.
So I'm excited. I'm excited to do that. To just keep growing the podcast. Like, we've been able to go into the top 5 for music interview podcasts in Canada, and see if we can, somehow push it into the top 3, and maybe number 1 at one point would be amazing. So keep growing, keep trying to get better. I go back and I have to watch every interview I do multiple times because of all the editing and clips and all that. So you get to see all the times you say and like, and you try to get better with those things. And then So just trying to get better as someone doing the interviews. What else? Yeah, I just after almost 5 years, the YouTube channel just got monetized. Just became a YouTube partner, which is awesome. I've been focusing like you guys on Apple and Spotify. Like I think podcasting, I think those, and I haven't really focused on my YouTube. Like I've been putting out the 2-hour videos, but I hadn't really focused on it until I saw what people that are monetized and do well on YouTube, like some of these 20-year-olds make millions of dollars, and you're like, okay, if this person can do it, I can do it for sure. So just in the last 3 months, I've focused on YouTube, and it was enough to get it monetized. And now I'm excited. Now there's actually, there's ways to monetize outside of YouTube, but now having YouTube as an extra source of income, you get excited because, hey, if I'm posting videos and I'm promoting them, there's extra financial incentive. So I'm excited now to not just focus on Apple and Spotify, which is what gets you to the top of those charts, but now to focus on YouTube and how can I grow as a YouTube content creator as well. So I don't know if I'll do more content that's not, on the actual podcast. It's just extra music content. So I'm still figuring that out, but that's got me excited as well.
Yeah, it kind of gets me excited too, to kind of, because we're only maybe a year and a little bit, so by the time we get to 5 years, hopefully we've kind of, become a little bit better, at least. Like you said, I kind of listen and look at old podcasts and say, I think I've grown a little bit. But I would like to get better as well. So it's kind of inspirational to kind of see your trajectory in podcasting and your diverse social media kind of portfolio you got going on here. It's great. Yeah, it's awesome, and it's good content that I love consuming. It's music related, and it's got a little Canadian flavor to it as well, I think, which is great. So a
little Canadiana to it, right? Yeah, you guys started your YouTube not that long ago, right? You were the same, that you were focusing on the other platforms.
Yeah. So like we had it up originally, and then we put a couple things up, of course, and like I say, because we were kind of pulling stuff up and listening to things, of course, you get ticks and whatever. So I was like, well, let's just not. And then when we started interviews, I was like, well, let's just put the interviews up on YouTube and see what happens. Right. So we just kind of started it. Like I say, we're kind of, I still haven't really, really dove into that portion of it yet. Yeah. But that'll come in time. Like I say, we got to get just kind of one thing at a time, and you chip something off. I find like what we've been doing, and I'm sure you feel the same way. You kind of get what you feel is like adequate at something, you're good at some portion of it, and you're like, okay, so I'm good at that. I kind of got that under control. Let's do the next thing, and let's try that now, right? Then when you kind of get that under control, then you kind of move on to the next thing. It's almost like you build a template, and everything becomes easier, and it just fall into place, right? So just editing and all the other kind of stuff that goes on in the background. Like it's one thing to sit and chat. That's the easy part, but then you gotta do all the other stuff after.
Yeah, I find the video portion is so important. Like most of my traction has come from the shorter clips that I post to promote the full interview. Like I feel like if I took away the video portion, if it was just audio on Spotify and Apple, I don't know how I would promote it properly. I find it's all the clips, all the video clips that go viral, that people share, that people comment on, that drives traffic to the actual interview. So for sure you gotta focus on that video, and it'll help things grow like crazy.
Yeah, and I think we noticed a huge uptick like immediately as soon as we started video. And we don't even make that many shorts or stuff like that. We make kind of like one per podcast or a couple per podcast kind of thing. Yeah,
something I'd like to work on more. Be able to get more clips and stuff. More post more, put more out there, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what, like I say, now we kind of got everything else kind of under control. We kind of know our format. Most 98% of the time it's the same kind of thing. So we kind of got everything in that context I can think nailed out. And I think like everything, you just grow. Next thing now we'll get on that. Yeah. We were discussing some stuff today, like right now I use a version we record the podcast I guess in a certain way kind of thing. Then we're looking at other options that make it a little bit easier on the other side, maybe to make YouTube Shorts and stuff that's a bit more promotional, because that's the biggest portion, is trying to get formats and all these kind of silly things that go along with it all.
There's a lot to learn for sure.
is.
Since the last 3 months that I've been focusing on YouTube, I watched so many YouTube videos of the most successful YouTubers talking about like, oh, make sure to do this for that, and it should be this length, and you should put an ad in at this timestamp, and make sure to ask for this, and put this clip to get a subscriber, and once you do this, and oh, if you want to beat the algorithm, and it's like I'm just in YouTube land the last 3 months, and if you just keep implementing these, the little things that you're learning, everything together just starts compounding, and you really see the difference. They talk about like, oh, these are the 3 times a day that have the most traffic. So if you're, putting your video in where there's the most eyeballs when you launch it, there's a better chance that it'll, get more views, and just all the little things, and the days of the week, and how often should you be posting, and should your video, is it better that it's 3 minutes or 8 minutes? And I find that stuff fascinating. Like, it sounds like a lot and it sounds boring, and but all the marketing stuff I've always been really interested in.
Yeah, it's great to see what sticks and what
Is
puts
interesting,
some
yeah.
good numbers up, and what it's kind of addicting too to see like a
Watching the number tick up.
we made a Limp Bizkit Fred Durst post, and it's got like
I saw that.
138,000
It was
likes.
the Woodstock.
Yeah.
The Woodstock one.
And it just, of course, like goes ballistic, and you know what I mean. Like, I mean, it's not necessarily directly us or whatever, but it's something we talk about Limp Bizkit every episode.
Yeah,
basically.
It's just, and it gets
funny, right?
eyeballs to our Instagram, and from there,
Yeah.
hopefully, get them to our podcast is kind of the goal, I guess. So,
Yeah, your Instagram Reels numbers are very good, right?
Yeah, some of them are
Like-
crazy. Like, what I mean?
Yeah,
There's a
I
couple,
remember
yeah.
looking, and for a newer podcast, I'm like, holy shit, like these numbers are like really good on Instagram. So you're doing something right there.
Yeah, like I say, we're picking, right? It's like, and it's like everything seems like, and everybody seems to have the same issue, no matter how big or small their thing is. Like, if you shoot something out, it seems like some stuff sticks and some stuff just does not. Like, no matter what, like it's.
And maybe that's a timing issue thing as well, like you said, where there's hot times of the day to post something, and maybe we just post it when we have a spare time, spare hour to do so.
Yeah,
So
that's the tough part, trying to do this and a full-time job.
What's a little disheartening is, I'll post a reel in the morning, whatever, 8 a.m. I'll post a reel, and every reel for me gets a certain amount of views as like a baseline. You're like, okay, that's like, it's going to get that much. And if it does really well, it'll get this much. And every now and then I'll post one and it just gets no views. Like somehow it just got skipped over.
It's weird.
So it gets no views. And you're like, I swear that was a good video. Like, I worked hard on that one. I thought people would like it. And, because it's got no views, you're like, well, I'll try it again. So I delete it. And like the next day I post it and it gets 4,700 views, and you're like, it's the same video I posted that got no views. So sometimes that kind of sucks, where you're like, it has nothing to do with me or my content half the time,
Right.
Yeah. And I don't think it's a lot of time with anything to do with content. I think it's just like when it gets put out, when it shows up. Did something else crazy come out at that around that same time you posted your, you know what I mean? Like something very viral came
Did
out.
the first
or whatever.
few people that saw it, did they like it or comment or share? Like, there's all this stuff happening, and it's like a lot of it's beyond your control.
Yeah,
it's
I think
funny.
we had a few like celebrities like
Yeah.
one of our reels and stuff like that, and then I don't know what it is about the algorithm of Instagram, but if someone who's famous likes it, then maybe they can then share it to more people or something. I don't know
Yeah,
how
it's
it
weird.
works. Like, it's so
It
weird.
seems like
but
the more higher up in the hierarchy you get, if you
Their
get a
likes
like,
are
Yeah.
their likes are worth like 10,000
Yeah.
likes.
Yeah.
from other-
so like we'll share it to more people.
yeah,
I don't know.
It's it's almost like, oh, this is legitimate, I guess, or something. It's a bit weird, but yeah, I find it interesting. But like I said, you do the majority of that kind of stuff. I kind of do all the other technical bits and bobs, but yeah, it's
But like
it's
you,
interesting.
like you said, just being consistent. So that's the kind of always been our
Yeah.
main focus, is being consistent. And I think, someone who's at least putting forth some effort to improve and, put some good content out there, I think eventually maybe,
It'll strike.
It'll strike, maybe. I don't know. But if not, that's fine too, because we're just having fun doing this, and it's what we like talking about.
Well, you guys have been good at staying consistent and doing it the once a week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been like every week since last July or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
That's
and if we
awesome.
haven't like literally filmed that week, we filmed a couple, and then put them out every week at least, right? And then a couple of, like I said, we've done some bonus stuff, and then we've done some live pods around town kind of thing, like at events, and then we recorded those, put them up as pods as well. So there's a couple spare episodes out there and stuff like that too. So, but yeah, we try to keep it once a week.
The numbers are shocking. I think it's 90. What is it? I think it's like 95% of podcasts don't go past 3 episodes.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of
Those are
like
the
registered
numbers.
pods that don't really do anything. Like they're just kind of like dead pods. They're out there. They've got 8 episodes or whatever.
So
and that's
most people, you start a podcast, you spend hours preparing and filming and editing and launching, and nobody watches. And then you do a second one, and by the third one, they realize like the amount of work versus how little people care at all. They stop. So that's why literally 95% don't make it past 3 episodes. So right away for you guys to have done, over a year and you've been consistent, it's a way bigger deal than people think to get to whatever number you're at of episodes.
Yeah, it's like
This will be 67.
yes, official episodes. This will be the
And,
67th one.
Yeah, when we hit 20, we thought that was
Couldn't believe it.
huge. We couldn't believe it. Yeah.
We did 20 episodes.
Here we are.
Because 20 seems to be like the cutoff number for anybody who's really going at it. Seems like 20 kind of is like, okay, I got 20 good episodes and that's as much as I can get out of it. But yeah, there's some funny statistics around podcasting. It's an interesting game in itself.
Yeah, I've studied all those numbers. What is it? I think, yeah, the numbers are shockingly low for everything. Like
Yeah.
if you get like 100 downloads for your episode, you're already in like the top 20% of podcasts. Like the numbers are so shocking for the low barrier of entry, just because everybody quits shortly after they
Yeah.
start. So the number base is so low. I think if you get 5,000 downloads per episode, you're in the top 5% of podcasts in the world, period.
That's crazy.
We're not,
Yeah.
We're not there yet, but that's what we're striving for. Like that's the other side now is we're trying to figure out how to push more people to become, followers of our, you know what I mean? Not necessarily just looking at it, because you can see all those numbers and they're way bigger than the following numbers. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference in those two things. Of course, then all your stuff is looked at differently, and like we'd like to be able to monetize, but we're a little ways away from that on all channels, kind of thing. Besides Instagram, but Instagram is tough to monetize because it's Canada and a lot of rules and regulations about how you can and cannot monetize. So that's kind of tough, right? So it's an interesting thing. We just would like to monetize just to kind of keep money into the pod, not necessarily like, I want to quit my job tomorrow and do whatever, but like it would be cool just to be able to put more effort and more stuff into the podcast kind of thing. But monetizing's been tough. That's the one thing that we struggle with the most, I think.
Yeah, I think if you just keep working on the podcast, keep getting better at the craft, keep getting bigger and better guests, I think it all just it'll get monetized. Like the sponsors come and you hit the numbers you have to hit, and yeah, it's just a matter of staying consistent and being there long enough for the success to happen.
Yeah, I think it's a time spent. Some of it is definitely time spent. You got to put your time in, and it'll come eventually.
But it also helps just that it's just fun, and we're chatting with some like-minded people who are interested in some of the same things that we are. So yeah, it's been great having you on here tonight to chat you up about
pick your brain on all sorts of knowledge.
All sorts of stuff here.
Yeah.
All sorts of random music, nerdy stuff. Yeah, it's been awesome, man. I'll talk music all day, every day. So it's a good day when you get to chat with fellow music lovers.
Yeah, that's the best part of the pod, I think, is just chatting with people and hearing their side of the story. It's fun, and we're fans of your work too. So it makes it a bit more interesting too when you're an actual fan. It's different when you're just looking for an interview. But yeah, no, it's good. But Joel, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an honor for us to have you on, and like I say, you're an inspiration to us to keep pushing the pod out there and pushing great Canadian content for people. And I love it. I love to see that part. That's my favorite part of it. I like the Canadian aspect of anybody's content. So yeah, appreciate you coming on, man.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, Sam and Ryan, I'm a fan of yours. I've been checking out all your stuff, and again, 1985, baby. You know, it hits me right in the feels. We're talking about the love for the same movies, the same video games, the same albums. So yeah, every time I see you guys have a new story, a new reel, a new post, I'm checking it out. So I think we're all on the same page for our interests. So man, thanks for the invite. Thanks for having me on. And this is, when you guys asked me to be on your podcast, and I said yes, this was going to be the first ever interview that I wasn't interviewing someone else. So I had never done another podcast. I had just focused on my own podcast for the last 5 years. So I said yes to you guys. That was the first one ever. And then it's like the floodgates open, and then someone else asked me, and I was able to do that a few weeks ago. You guys are so busy, you're booked for weeks in advance. But yeah, you guys opened the floodgates of me actually going out and be on other people's podcasts. So thank you for that opportunity. You're the first person that's actually had me asked me to be a guest. So there you go.
Oh man,
Appreciate those words.
History in the making.
History in the making. That's right.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. Right. And we'll have to have you back again sometime. The door's always open, as they say.
That's right. There's never just a one-time thing here. We can always get you back on. And you have a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience and stuff to share with people. So it's great to have you on and try to absorb some of that. So, Joel, thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for the kind words, guys, and I'll definitely take you guys up on that offer. Let me know when you want me back, and I'll come on again. That'll be awesome.
Awesome. We'll let you know for sure. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Check it out. Check out Joel on YouTube, Spotify, everywhere else you get podcasts. Joel Martin Mastery. Check him out. Excellent podcast. Thanks so much.